They told you the new world was empty. Just trees, silence, and a few scattered hunters waiting for history to begin. But the truth is older, heavier, buried under wind and dust. Cities were already breathing here when Egypt was still a rumor. Welcome back, traveler. Tonight, let's trade neon light for starlight, and the sound of traffic for the whisper of the Pacific wind. If you're watching, dim the screen, loosen your shoulders, and let the past pull you under. Like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. I always imagine someone half asleep in a different corner of the world, wondering what came before us. You wake up in the desert. The air is thin, colder than you expect, and the light has that strange golden shimmer that makes everything look both alive and ancient. Before you stretches a dry river valley, the soup, and beyond it, the quiet bones of a city. It doesn't sound like much. No glittering stone pyramids, no armies, no hieroglyphs carved in granite. Just mounds of earth shaped by hands that shouldn't have known how to do this yet, at least, according to the tidy timelines printed in your schoolbook. You walk closer. There's wind, always wind, pushing sand across the plazas. The smell is a mix of salt from the distant sea and dust that hasn't moved in 4,000 years. Someone once called this the mother city of the Americas. It was already old when the pharaohs were learning to stack limestone blocks. You imagine the people here, not as caricatures in a museum diorama, but as neighbors. They rise before dawn, faces lit by the faint glow of fire pits. They weave reed baskets, grind maize, and carry stones heavier than your car with nothing but rope and determination. No wheels. No metal. No draft animals. Just human stubbornness. The city hums softly. 6 pyramids, circular plazas, staircases rising toward nowhere. A civilization building itself out of silence. You try to picture the conversations, arguments over where to place a wall, laughter carried across the plaza, songs lost in the wind. They don't leave behind writing, so you have to guess. That's the problem with ghosts. They never label themselves. Somewhere nearby, a priest, or maybe just someone who looks confident enough to pretend, tosses offerings into a fire, shells, seeds, a little cotton. Smoke curls up and vanishes into the afternoon sky. The ritual looks pointless to you, but then again, so does scrolling endlessly through a glowing rectangle. Every era has its own version of devotion. You walk past the pyramid's base, tracing the outline with your hand. It's warm, gritty, solid. The architecture is precise, not random piles, but carefully measured geometry. You realize someone planned this. Someone drew lines in the sand, scaled them up, and said, "Yes, this will be our home." And that thought alone should make you uncomfortable. Because if Carol is real, and it is, then the idea that civilization began in the old world starts to wobble. This place dates to around 3,500 BCE. That's older than the Great Pyramid of Giza, older than Stonehenge, older than almost everything you were taught came first. Yet, there's no mention of it in most textbooks. Because history, like any good story, needs a clean beginning, and Carol ruins the prologue. It's proof that humanity doesn't evolve in a straight line. It sprouts everywhere, unpredictably, like weeds through concrete. The sun dips lower. You can almost hear children laughing somewhere, merchants arguing over dried fish, the dull thud of stones being moved into place. You blink, and they're gone. The city returns to silence, just wind, sand, and unanswered questions. Who were they? How did they organize, trade, plan? What stories did they tell while building a city no one would remember for 5,000 years? You don't know. No one really does. But you can feel the weight of their presence, and the strange unfairness of how easily civilizations vanish when no one's looking. Congrats. You've just woken up in one of humanity's oldest forgotten cities. And it only gets stranger from here. You leave the desert behind. The air grows heavier, wetter. The wind dies, replaced by the constant hum of insects and the faint smell of rot, the jungle's perfume. Somewhere along the Gulf Coast, long before the word Olmec ever existed, you find another world rising out of the green. The textbooks call these people pre-Olmec, which is historian speak for, we don't know who they were, but they left some weird stuff behind. You follow the river, the ancient lifeline that fed their settlements, until you see the first stone face staring at you from the ground. It's massive. A human head, carved from basalt, 8 feet tall, smooth and expressionless. The lips are thick, the helmet-like cap carefully etched. The eyes, too calm for something dragged miles through the jungle without wheels. You wonder who this was. The king? A warrior? Or just someone important enough to immortalize in stone while everyone else got recycled back into the soil? You stand there for a while, mosquitoes making you their personal buffet, and think about logistics. These people had no metal tools, no pack animals, no recorded writing, and yet they hauled these heads dozens of miles. Because humans have always done impossible things when it means leaving a mark. The desire to be remembered might be our oldest addiction. Everywhere around you are hints of a world just out of reach. Bits of pottery, mounds half swallowed by roots, the outline of what might have been a ceremonial plaza. Archaeologists debate names, dates, meanings. You just see ambition, and maybe a little madness. Civilization doesn't always start with reason. Sometimes it starts with someone saying, let's move that mountain-sized rock. For vibes. The jungle presses close. The heat feels alive. You hear parrots screaming in the canopy, monkeys bickering, and beneath it all, the low rumble of thunder rolling over the horizon. It's hard to imagine this place as anything but wild, yet beneath your feet are layers of human effort, organized labor, ritual centers, early trade. People were building, trading, planning here while Mesopotamia was still trying to figure out how to keep its walls from melting in the rain. You find shards of pottery painted with patterns, spirals, eyes, snakes. Each one feels like a whisper from someone who assumed their world would last forever. It didn't. Most of their names, languages, gods, all gone, eaten by time and humidity. You kneel beside a half-buried figurine, its face worn smooth. Was this a deity, or just a child's toy? You'll never know. You brush the dirt away, then put it back. It feels wrong to disturb them any further. As night falls, the jungle transforms. Mist creeps up from the river. Fireflies blink like static. The carved head fades into shadow. You start to understand why later cultures would mythologize their ancestors, because mystery is easier to worship than to explain. And somewhere in that darkness, a thought settles in. These people, whoever they were, could shape stone and society out of the jungle before the first pyramids rose in Egypt. Then maybe the so-called cradle of civilization had more than one nursery. You turn to leave, but one last thing catches your eye. On the side of the colossal head, faint lines, maybe decorative, maybe symbolic. A pattern repeating in curves and spirals. You can't read it, but it feels deliberate, like a message carved for someone far in the future. Maybe for you. Spoiler alert, you won't figure it out tonight. But don't worry, the mystery only deepens from here. You wake to the smell of damp earth and the slow crackle of a fire. Mist clings to the trees like cobwebs. The ground trembles faintly under distant thunder, or maybe drums. This is the land of the Olmec, and nothing about it feels accidental. The river winds through everything here, wide, brown, patient. Along its banks rise earthen platforms, pyramids of packed clay and stone. They don't look like much at first, just soft, green hills. But beneath the grass are the bones of temples and plazas built 3,000 years ago. This was San Lorenzo, one of the first true cities in the Americas. You stretch, still half asleep, and realize that people here lived organized lives before the word Rome even existed. They built colossal sculptures, managed trade networks, grew maize, and carved gods out of basalt. And somehow they made it all look effortless. You walk through the morning fog toward a plaza lined with statues. They stare back at you, wide-jawed, helmeted, serene. The same style you saw earlier in the jungle, only now multiplied, perfected. Each one weighs 20, 30, 40 tons. Dragged across miles of swamp with no wheels, no beasts of burden, no steel tools. Just people. Thousands of them. You pause, wondering how many backs broke to make art that would outlive its audience. That's the thing about civilization, it's always built on someone else's exhaustion. The Olmec world hums with strange dualities. It's humid, lush, full of life, but also deeply eerie, like everything here is aware of you. The forests crawl with jaguars, the rivers with crocodiles, the air with gods that wear animal faces. Religion isn't something you go to on Sundays, it's something that breathes down your neck every time you step outside. You walk past a small courtyard where people once gathered for rituals. There's a stone altar, flat, smooth, slightly stained. You'd like to believe it was just for offerings of maize or flowers. But the channels carved into it suggest other possibilities. Let's just say the Olmec didn't shy away from a little drama in their worship. Nearby, you find jade figurines, their faces strangely serene. Their eyes are almond-shaped, their lips curved in that knowing, almost smug smile that ancient statues always seem to have, the expression of someone who knows how the story ends. Jade was sacred, a stone that captured life's breath. They traded for it across hundreds of miles, because you can't have divine power without a little imported luxury. You wander further, past homes made of wattle and daub, past workshops where artisans once carved delicate masks. The masks look human, but not quite, something in between man and God. It's as if the Olmec were still deciding which one they wanted to be. And then there are the babies. Small sculptures of infants with jaguar features, wide heads, downturned mouths, sharp little teeth. Archaeologists call them ur-jaguar figures, but no one really knows what they meant. Half child, half predator. A symbol of power, fertility, or maybe the unsettling truth that even the innocent are born hungry. As the day warms, steam rises from the jungle floor. You can almost hear the sound of markets, the chatter of traders carrying obsidian and cacao, the rhythm of drums echoing from the plaza. The Olmec weren't just farmers, they were inventors of culture. They shaped art, architecture, and myths that would echo into future empires, the Maya, the Aztec, all the way down the centuries. They were, in a way, the mother culture of Mesoamerica. But of course, mothers rarely get the credit they deserve. You look back toward the colossal heads one more time. Each face is distinct, maybe rulers, maybe gods. It's hard to tell the difference here. Power and divinity blur like heat rising off stone. And as the shadows lengthen, you realize something else. The Olmec world wasn't primitive. It was deliberate, complex, layered. A civilization that rose from swamp and mist, thrived for centuries, and then, without clear reason, vanished. No war, no cataclysm, no written farewell. Just silence swallowing the plazas. Maybe they moved on. Maybe the jungle took them back. Either way, their cities sleep beneath vines now, their gods buried but not forgotten. You take one last breath of that heavy air, tasting the sweetness of rot and river water. The fire's gone out. The drums are fading. Congrats, you've just walked through the birthplace of Mesoamerican civilization. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you see what their descendants built. You wake up to the sound of the jungle screaming. Howler monkeys, cicadas, birds that sound like they're arguing about rent, all of it layered over the low pulse of drums. The air is thick enough to chew. You wipe the sweat from your face and there it is, a city. No roads lead here, but somehow you found yourself standing at the foot of a stone staircase taller than anything you've ever climbed. The city's name could be Tikal, or Palenque, or Copan. It doesn't really matter. They all hum with the same energy, stones stacked with impossible precision, carved with stories no one fully remembers. You tilt your head back and stare up the steps. The pyramid rises through the canopy like it's trying to punch the sun. Every block was cut by hand, hauled by sheer human will. No metal tools. No wheels. Just geometry and obsession. You start to climb, because that's what everyone does in a civilization like this. They climb. The stone is warm, the edges uneven. By the 5th terrace your legs are shaking, by the 7th you're bargaining with gods you don't believe in, and by the top, you understand why they built it. The world spreads out beneath you, endless green, curling rivers, distant mountains swallowed by mist. You feel small, and that's the point. Here, the gods aren't somewhere far away, they're right above you, watching from a sky thick with humidity and expectation. The Maya were masters of many things: astronomy, architecture, writing. But what they really perfected was anxiety. They measured time so precisely it became a religion. Days, months, cycles, backtons, every sunrise part of a cosmic clock counting down to something big. You live, you plant, you build, you die, and somewhere, someone carves the date of it all into stone. In one plaza, a scribe kneels, pressing symbols into a stela. The glyphs twist and curl, tiny stories of kings, wars, marriages, eclipses. You can almost hear the scratching of his chisel, the quiet muttering as he gets the calendar right. Because if he doesn't, the world might end. No pressure. The city below you is alive. Markets buzz with traders carrying cacao, obsidian, salt, feathers. Children chase each other through courtyards. Smoke drifts from cook fires, mixing with the smell of roasted maize and wet limestone. And somewhere, behind all that, the priests are already preparing for the next ceremony, the one involving a little blood and a lot of belief. You watch as the ruler steps out of a temple doorway, wearing a headdress taller than he is. Jade gleams, feathers shimmer, and the mask hides whatever's underneath. The crowd chants, drums thunder, and for a brief moment, everyone believes he's not a man but a god made visible. You try to imagine being that sure of anything. And yet, for all their grandeur, the Maya world feels fragile. Every stone is a promise held together by faith and mathematics. Their cities rise, fall, and rise again, swallowed by jungle, rediscovered centuries later by explorers who think they found Atlantis. You smile because of course they did. Europeans always think they're the first ones to notice something. The Maya understood something we still struggle with. Time doesn't end. It just resets like a tired computer. That whole 2012 apocalypse thing? Just the end of a calendar cycle. The ancient equivalent of your phone alarm saying update required. The world didn't end, it just hit snooze. You look down again from the pyramid's peak. The mist has thickened. The jungle's song has softened into a heartbeat. Somewhere below, a fire flickers, a scribe wipes sweat from his brow, a child laughs. Life continues, perfectly measured, perfectly mortal. You take a breath. The stone beneath you is still warm from the sun. You could stay here forever, but forever isn't long in a world that worships cycles. Congrats. You've just lived a day in the beating heart of the Maya world. A civilization that built clocks so accurate they outlasted their cities. And somewhere to the north, another empire is already watching the horizon, waiting for its turn. You wake to the sound of water slapping against stone. Mist drifts low over a lake so wide it looks like a sky turned upside down. Out of it rises a city, symmetrical, shining, impossible. This is Tenochtitlan, and it's floating. Stone causeways stretch out like veins, connecting islands that shouldn't exist. Canoes glide between them, loaded with maize, beans, flowers, the city's lifeblood. The air smells of wet earth, smoke, and something metallic that you try not to identify. Welcome to the Aztec capital, built on water and willpower. You start walking and immediately realize you're the worst dressed person here. Everyone else wears woven cotton, feathers, shells, jade. Sweat, confusion, and maybe regret. Still, people nod politely. The Aztec were civilized after all, right up until the moment they weren't. The streets are straight, clean, organized. Channels of water run between them, lined with gardens floating on rafts, chinampas. Rows of maize and flowers drift where fish once swam. It's sustainable agriculture before anyone invented hashtags about it. You pass markets loud enough to drown thought. Traders bargaining, drums beating, the occasional flute reminding you that chaos can have rhythm. There's obsidian here sharper than any surgeon's scalpel, cacao beans used as currency, and yes, human hearts somewhere drying on a temple wall. It's the full range of civilization, beauty, commerce, and horror neatly blended. At the city's center, twin pyramids rise, the Templo Mayor. One for the rain god, one for the war god, because balance matters. You climb the steps, everyone slick with spilled offerings and something older than guilt. At the top, the air tastes thin, electric. Below you, the city shimmers, millions of lives pulsing in rhythm with ritual. You try to understand the ceremony. The priests wear masks, their hands move with practiced precision. Someone kneels. There's a flash of obsidian, a sound that's both soft and final. The crowd cheers. You tell yourself it's just culture. Then again, so is everything we excuse as normal. The Aztec believed the sun needed nourishment, specifically the nourishment of human hearts, to rise each morning. Call it cosmic maintenance. And while that sounds horrifying, consider, you give your energy to a glowing rectangle every day so a company's stock price can rise. Different rituals, same devotion. Later, when the drums fade, the city softens. Children laugh near the canals. Someone roasts maize, and the smell is gentle, almost domestic. It's easy to forget this is an empire, one that rules through tribute, trade, and fear. From the Gulf to the Pacific, goods and captives flow here like water. You sit beside the canal as night settles. Torches flicker on the temples. The water mirrors the stars so perfectly you can't tell which way is up. You understand, suddenly, why they built here. To live between two worlds, earth and sky, reflection and reality. But reflection has a cost. Somewhere beyond the lake, faint thunder, or maybe the echo of cannons not yet invented here, rolls across the mountains. History is coming, and it isn't kind. In less than a century, ships will appear on the horizon, bringing diseases invisible and promises fatal. The mirror will shatter. For now, though, the city glows. People sing in Nahuatl. Smoke curls upward like prayers that never needed translation. The empire breathes, unaware it's already a legend waiting to be discovered beneath layers of ash and guilt. You watch your reflection ripple in the canal. Behind it, the temple stands unshaken, the moon resting on its peak like a crown. You whisper to yourself, remember this place. When they call it savage, remember how it sparkled. Congrats. You've just walked through a city built on water and blood, proof that beauty and terror can share the same address. And far to the south, across mountains that touch the sky, another empire is learning to carve its world from stone. You wake before dawn, because everyone does up here. The cold wakes you faster than coffee ever could. You can see your breath hanging in the dark like a ghost that hasn't decided whether to leave. When the sun finally rises, it doesn't rise gently. It blasts over the mountains, turning the snow peaks gold and the valleys bronze. Somewhere far below, llamas shuffle and mutter like grumpy commuters. Welcome to the highlands of Peru, long before the Inca had the brand name. The land looks impossible. Terraces climbing the slopes like giant staircases to nowhere. Every inch carved by hand, every wall held together by gravity and stubbornness. Down in the valley, smoke curls from mud brick houses, and the people of Chavindahuantur begin their day. They don't call it that, of course. To them, it's just home, a place where the earth hums. You walk through narrow stone corridors etched with faces, fanged, staring, halfway between human and feline. The air smells of damp stone and burning resin. Somewhere in the dark, water rushes through underground channels, echoing like a heartbeat. It's not plumbing, it's performance. Sound, shadow, and architecture fused into religion. Because if your gods can't scare you a little, are they even gods? Priests here wear heavy headdresses and wide eyes. They chew coca leaves until their mouths go numb, then whisper to idols carved from granite. The main one, the Lanzan, is buried deep in the temple's core, a single monolith twisting upward like a fong piercing the sky. You stand before it and feel the weight of belief pressing down. It's not inviting. It doesn't want worship, it demands obedience. Outside, farmers are already in the fields, wrapped in wool, feet in the frost. They plant potatoes, quinoa, maize, small miracles coaxed from thin soil. You wonder how anyone survives up here. Then again, maybe that's the point. Survival itself becomes a kind of prayer. The Andes aren't generous. They reward planning, cooperation, and an unhealthy relationship with altitude. Communities trade up and down the slopes, fish from the coast, coca from the jungle, salt from the flats. Everyone has something someone else needs. Civilization isn't born from abundance, it's born from negotiation. By midday, the temple plaza fills with color. Musicians blow into conch shells, dancers whirl in thick wool, smoke rises from offerings of maize beer. You sip a little. It's sour, strong, and probably older than your liver's comfort zone. They drink to remember the gods, or to forget them, depending on the day. You walk to the edge of the site and look out across the valley. Terraces ripple down like green waves frozen in stone. In the distance, mountains stretch forever, their tops fading into cloud. It feels eternal, but you know it isn't. Civilizations here rise quietly and vanish even quieter. No collapse, no fireworks, just slow forgetting. Centuries from now, others will follow. Mosh, Nazca, Tiwanaku, Wari, each stacking stones a little higher, each pretending the previous ones never existed. The pattern is familiar. We call it progress when really it's just repetition with better tools. As evening falls, the temperature drops like a stone. Fires flicker in doorways. The scent of roasted maize and wood smoke drifts through the cold. Someone plays a flute carved from bone. The sound is soft, lonely, perfectly in tune with the wind. You pull your cloak tighter and realize you can't feel your fingers. Congratulations, you're living history at 5,000 meters above common sense. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, a new power is beginning to gather, one that will one day stretch across mountains, deserts, and dreams. But for now, the Andes sleep, and their gods smile through stone fangs. You close your eyes, listen to the water running beneath the temple, and think. Civilization doesn't need comfort. It just needs memory. And tomorrow, memory will start carving itself into empire. You open your eyes and there's nothing but stone and clouds. The air feels sharp enough to drink. Far below, the valleys coil in mist. Far above, peaks stab through sunlight like the teeth of sleeping gods. And on a narrow terrace clinging to the slope, a city breathes. Cusco, navel of the world. It doesn't roar the way other capitals do. It hums, quiet, precise, confident. Streets laid out like a puma's body. Walls fitted so perfectly you couldn't slip a postcard between the stones. Each block weighs more than your car. None of them are cemented. They just fit, like the universe should. You wander down a corridor. Every wall leans inward a little, built to survive earthquakes long before seismology was a word. You run a hand along the granite, cold, polished, deliberate. Whoever carved this had patience that bordered on madness. The Inca didn't build for comfort. They built for eternity. Houses, roads, terraces, storehouses, everything locked into place by geometry and faith. Their empire, the Tawantinsuyu, stretched over deserts, jungles, and snow, for quarters held together by one idea. Everything and everyone belongs to the state. It's socialism if socialism wore gold jewelry and demanded you worship the sun. Down in the plaza, the morning ritual begins. Priests in crimson robes lift cups of chicha, maize beer with ambitions, to Inti, the sun. The emperor, the Sapa Inca, stands before them, draped in gold so bright it hurts to look directly. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. When you're considered the literal son of the sun, small talk feels beneath you. The crowd kneels. Drums roll. Somewhere, a conch shell sounds like a sigh from the mountain itself. It's hard not to be impressed, or mildly terrified. The ceremony ends, and just like that, the empire returns to efficiency mode. You follow a procession of runners, chaskis, each holding a message knotted into a string. They sprint along the royal road, handing it off relay style across mountains. No horses, no wheels, just lungs and loyalty. In a few days that message will reach the coast, decoded by someone who never even met the sender. It's the Andean version of email, only faster and with better calves. The roads themselves are miracles. Thousands of miles carved across impossible terrain, suspension bridges of woven grass, staircases etched into cliffs, markers aligned to the solstice. You pause on one ledge and look down. The world looks fragile from here, like something you could accidentally drop. At the next village, you're greeted with coca leaves and curiosity. People work in perfect rhythm. One group tending terraces, another weaving, another building. No money here, just labor, tribute, and trust that the empire will take care of you. Spoiler, it mostly does until it doesn't. In the evening you reach a mountain ridge and see it. Machu Picchu, hanging between earth and heaven like an idea that never touched the ground. Stone houses, temples, terraces, every line clean, every wall humming with quiet arrogance. The mist curls through it like incense. It's so beautiful it almost feels fake, like the gods hired an architect with a minimalist streak. You sit on a terrace edge, watching the sun bleed orange over the peaks. Somewhere below, water channels whisper through the city. The Incas built them to sing, every drop measured, every sound intentional. Because when you believe the mountains are alive, you build gently. Night falls fast here. The stars come out sharp and infinite. Someone starts playing a flute, someone else hums a prayer. You realize that for the Inca, time isn't a straight line. It's a circle of seasons, a heartbeat of harvests, a promise that nothing truly ends. It just changes altitude. You breathe in thin air, equal parts awe and exhaustion. The empire stretches unseen beyond the horizon, its roads glowing faintly under moonlight. You think of how fragile power looks when it's perfect, and how soon ships will appear on distant shores, carrying languages that don't have words for reciprocity. But that's another dawn. For now, the world is stone and silence. You close your eyes. The mountains hum approval. Congrats, you've just stood in the heart of an empire that mastered gravity and bureaucracy at the same time. And somewhere beyond the sea, history is already sharpening its knives. You wake up before the sun. Not because you want to, but because the empire expects it. The mountains are still wrapped in fog, and the air feels like cold glass against your skin. You stretch, shiver, and reach for a handful of toasted maize. Breakfast of champions? Or, at least, farmers drafted into state service. Outside your hut, the terraces cascade down the mountain like giant green stairs. Each one carved by hand, filled with soil carried in baskets, stone by stone, life by life. Your family tends one section, and today, it's maize. Tomorrow, it'll be potatoes. And next week, whatever the state decides. There's no personal property here. Just a communal patch of earth and the quiet understanding that the sun's watching. You grab your tools and join the others heading out. The air smells like wet clay and smoke. A condor drifts overhead, lazy but judgmental. Someone jokes that it's the spirit of an ancestor checking attendance. No one laughs too loudly. You never know who's listening. Work starts with a prayer. You raise your hands toward the sun, Inti, and mutter the same old lines about warmth, crops, and survival. Then the rhythm begins. Pick, plant, spet. Pick, plant, spet. The sound becomes hypnotic, almost comforting. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint thud of a drum from the temple, a reminder that even here, high on a mountain, the empire's heartbeat reaches you. By mid-morning, the fog burns off and the valley opens below. You see silver lines of roads crossing ridges and rivers, leading toward Cusco. On them, chasquis sprint past, the message runners, lean, fast, and doomed to shin splints. Each carries a quipu, a bundle of cords tied in intricate knots. That's how information travels here. Taxes, harvests, census data, all encoded in string. It's like the world's first spreadsheet, except you can wear it as a necklace. At midday you rest. Lunch is a handful of potatoes and a sip of chicha, the fermented corn drink that tastes like mild regret. You chew coca leaves to keep your energy up. The world sharpens a little, and suddenly the work doesn't feel quite so endless. A llama watches you chew with quiet judgment. It's a sacred animal, a symbol of wealth, but it also spits in your face sometimes. So, like most sacred things, it's complicated. After lunch, an overseer walks through, counting heads and inspecting rows. You bow slightly. He doesn't nod back. He doesn't have to. The Inca system runs on precision. Every person, every field, every moment accounted for. You're not just farming, you're maintaining balance in a cosmic order. At least, that's the official line. By late afternoon, clouds roll in and thunder grumbles. You pack your tools, wipe the dirt from your hands, and head home along the terrace paths. Children chase guinea pigs. Old women spin alpaca wool into thread as smooth as river water. The smell of roasting maize fills the air. For a moment, everything feels still, like time is holding its breath. In the plaza, the local priest prepares the evening offering. He places coca leaves and small carvings before a shrine carved into the stone. No golden idols, no dramatic chanting, just a whisper into the wind. You add your own leaf to the pile. Not because you believe in everything, but because you don't want to find out what happens if you stop believing. Night descends fast in the Andes. The sky turns deep blue, then black, pierced with stars sharp enough to draw blood. You sit by the fire, watching sparks drift up into the dark like messages you'll never read. Someone hums an old song, half prayer, half lullaby. The melody doesn't have words anymore, but it doesn't need them. It's older than memory, older than the empire itself. Tomorrow will look the same. So will the next day and the one after that. You'll wake up, plant, pray, sleep. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret of the Inca. They didn't chase immortality, they built it out of repetition. As you drift off to sleep, you think of the mountains. How they hold everything. The terraces, the cities, the bones. And how quiet it all seems. Too quiet maybe, because somewhere beyond those peaks, sails are being stitched. And the wind is changing. You wake one morning to find the world slightly wrong. The air feels heavier, like the mountains are holding their breath. Somewhere in the valley, rumors are moving faster than runners. Men with white faces. Men with animals taller than llamas. Men who carry thunder in their hands. You laugh it off at first. The Andes are full of myths, lake spirits, sky serpents, talking stones. Another story won't hurt. But then someone mentions the part about the diseases, invisible ones that burn through villages before the strangers even arrive. You stop laughing. The sickness moves faster than logic. People cough, bleed, fade. Priests pray harder. Coca leaves pile up like snow. The empire's roads, once its veins of power, now carry panic in both directions. The Sapa Inca himself falls ill. No thunder, no swords, no armies, just something too small to see. By the time Atahualpa takes the throne, the Inca world already has cracks in it. And through those cracks, history walks in wearing iron. They come in small numbers, fewer than 200, led by a man named Francisco Pizarro, who probably thinks the sun rises just for him. He steps off his horse like a prophet and calls himself an emissary of a distant king. You watch from a ridge as his men stumble into Cusco, sweating, swearing, pointing at everything like it's a museum exhibit that owes them rent. They bring gifts, mirrors, bells, beads, and demands, gold, obedience, conversion. Classic trade-off. You can almost hear the universe sigh. Atahualpa meets them in Cajamarca, expecting diplomacy. He brings thousands of warriors, banners, and the kind of confidence you get from ruling half a continent. The Spaniards bring cannon, steel, and a priest. The priest reads a book, demands submission to his god. Atahualpa doesn't understand the words. He takes the book, shakes it, listens, no voice comes out. He throws it to the ground. Bad move. The square erupts. Gunfire, smoke, chaos. Horses, creatures no one here has ever seen, charge through the crowd like demons with saddles. In minutes, the Inca army collapses in confusion. Atahualpa is captured. The son of the world reduced to a bargaining chip in a stranger's pocket. You can still smell the gunpowder hours later. The streets are littered with broken spears, feathers, and silence. The Spaniards drink, laugh, and start counting how much gold it'll take to buy their prisoners' freedom. Spoiler, it's a lot. Word spreads fast. Every temple, every storeroom, every noble's house starts giving up its treasure. Gold idols melted. Ornaments stripped. Offerings turned into bars. You watch rivers of metal pour into Spanish molds, and wonder if the gods are watching, and whether they're laughing or crying. When the ransom is finally delivered, a room filled literally to the height of a man's arm, Atahualpa expects release. Instead, he's put on trial for treason in a language he doesn't speak. They strangle him with a garrote under a cross. It's supposed to be mercy. It doesn't feel like it. After that, the empire dissolves like smoke. One city falls, then another. Local rivals take sides, thinking they'll share the spoils. They don't. The Spaniards rename everything they touch, cities, mountains, gods, as if words themselves can erase what came before. You walk through Cusco at dusk, The temples still gleam faintly in the fading light, but their gold is gone. New flags hang where sun emblems once did. A church is rising on top of an old shrine. Same stones, different prayers. Somewhere beyond the plaza, you hear a woman singing an old Quechua lullaby to her child. Soft, mournful, steady. The kind of song that doesn't end, it just waits. Because the people don't vanish. They adapt, hide, whisper. And beneath the crosses and the cobblestones, the old gods sleep lightly. The world didn't end. It just changed ownership. And when you look up, the stars are still there. The same constellations that guided your ancestors long before any ship set sail. The Spaniards might rename the mountains, but the sky doesn't answer to them. You take one last look at Cusco, at what remains, and realize something quietly profound. Civilizations don't die. They go underground, wait for the right century, and resurface disguised as survival. You open your eyes to water. Endless reflections, calm and glassy, pierced by causeways that stretch toward a shimmering island. At the center of it all stands Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Aztec world. A city that shouldn't exist, but does, just to prove a point. You arrive by canoe, the smell of lake water mixing with incense. Ahead, temples rise like staircases to the sky, each one wrapped in banners, color, and a faint, metallic hum, the sound of thousands of obsidian blades being sharpened for reasons you'd rather not think about. Forget what you imagine when you hear ancient civilization. This place is organized chaos, streets aligned by the stars, canals cutting through neighborhoods, markets bigger than medieval capitals. Tens of thousands of voices blend into one constant rhythm. Trade, talk, prayer, and the occasional human scream from somewhere far too close to the temple district. Congrats! You've arrived in the most advanced city in the Western Hemisphere, and it runs on blood. You dock at the edge of a market, Tlatelolco, where every item you can imagine is being sold or bartered. Jade, feathers, cocoa beans, chilies, obsidian knives, and gossip. Cacao doubles as currency here, which means your morning chocolate drink is basically pocket change. People haggle, flirt, argue, laugh. It's loud, alive, confident, the pulse of an empire convinced it'll last forever. At the center of this world stands Huitzilopochtli, the Great Temple. 2 stairways, twin shrines, one for Huitzilopochtli, god of war and sun, the other for Tlaloc, god of rain and renewal. You climb slowly, your legs burning, the drums below beating steady and slow, like the world's most intimidating lullaby. At the top, the smell hits you. Iron. Flowers trying and failing to cover it. The priests wear jaguar skins, their faces streaked with red. They move with a calm precision that makes you wonder how many times they've done this. The offering is laid out, prayers whispered, hearts lifted, literally, toward the sky. It's not cruelty. At least, not how they see it. The sun rises only if it's fed. The gods give life, humans return the favor. And so the system keeps turning. You can almost admire the logic, brutal but efficient. When the ceremony ends, the drums shift to something lighter. Festivals follow sacrifice the way rain follows thunder. There's dancing, drinking, jokes about the gods' bad moods. Children chase each other between stalls while adults gamble with beans and bones. It's unsettling how normal it all feels. You realize civilization doesn't just build monuments, it builds justifications. Down in the palace, the Emperor Moctezuma II sits behind walls of turquoise and gold. He's both priest and politician, adored and feared, constantly calculating which god or neighbor to appease next. His empire stretches far, over mountains, jungles, deserts, but it's stitched together by tribute and threat. Every conquered region sends offerings to the capital: food, fabrics, warriors, and yes, sometimes captives. Everyone knows the system works, until it doesn't. At night, Tenochtitlan glows. Torches line the causeways, their reflections turning the lake into a living constellation. You walk along the water's edge and watch the stars ripple with each oar stroke. It's hauntingly beautiful, a city that floats and breathes like a living being. The wind shifts. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls, or maybe it's something else. Rumors drift through the markets. strangers on the coast, pale men with beards, carrying metal beasts and sticks that spit fire. Most people laugh it off. The Aztec world has seen omens before: comets, eclipses, strange birds, and the sun always rises again. But you can feel it in the air. The same unease that hung over the Andes now curls around the lake. The drums sound sharper tonight, the priests chant longer, and Moctezuma stares at the horizon a little too often. For now, though, the city sleeps, or pretends to. The canals shimmer, the temples brood, and the stars look down, indifferent. Tenochtitlan is perfect. And perfection, as history loves to remind us, is just the last calm before collapse. You wake to sound, not roosters, but drums. Deep, steady, echoing across the water from the temple district. They don't wake you up as much as remind you. The gods have their schedule, and so do you. Your house is small but clean. Reed mats, clay walls, the faint smell of last night's maize still clinging to the air. Through the open doorway, you can see the lake shining pale gold under the dawn. Boats already move along the canals, gliding silently, as if the city itself never sleeps. It just changes shifts. Breakfast is a toll, a warm maize drink that feels like comfort and duty mixed together. You sip it while sitting on the floor, watching the light crawl up the walls. It's easy to forget you live in the center of an empire, until you step outside. The streets of Tenochtitlan are alive, water on both sides, bridges crossing everywhere, lined with flowers that shouldn't exist this high above sea level but do anyway. People move with purpose, merchants pushing canoes full of goods, priests sweeping temple steps, children herding turkeys like tiny, feathered soldiers. You walk carefully. Falling into a canal this early in the morning feels like an undignified way to start the day. Your first stop is the market at Tlatelolco, a place so large it feels like a living organism. Tens of thousands of people, each with a job, a trade, a rhythm. You can buy anything here: obsidian blades sharp enough to shave a god, woven cotton so soft it might be worth your week's wages, chili peppers that make you briefly reconsider the will to live. There's even a section for gossip. People trade information like goods: who got promoted, who fell out of favor, which priest forgot a ritual line and might be on the next sacrificial list. It's not malicious, just maintenance. Empires run on information, and everyone here knows it. You stop by a stall selling amaranth cakes shaped like tiny human figures, the sweet kind used in ceremonies. The vendor smiles, tells you not to bite the head first. You do anyway. It tastes like honey and irony. By midday, the heat sets in. The air grows thick with incense and lake water. From somewhere in the distance, you hear the conch shell calling for prayer. People pause in their work, face the temple, whisper their thanks. Even in the middle of commerce, the divine has its time slot. After that, you visit your workshop. You're a feather artisan, one of the city's quiet magicians. Feathers from tropical birds, quetzal, macaw, heron, are laid out before you in neat rows. With bone tools and glue made from orchid bulbs, you press each one into place until the pattern becomes a shimmering image. A sunburst, a serpent, a jaguar mid-roar. It'll be sent to the palace, maybe even to Moctezuma himself. He loves feathers. They're lighter than gold but somehow worth more. You work until your back aches. Outside, the light begins to soften. You head home across the causeways, the lake glowing orange and violet beneath the sinking sun. A canoe passes, its paddler singing a song you don't recognize. Maybe old, maybe new. Either way, it sounds tired. Dinner is maize and beans, maybe a little chilly if you're lucky. Your neighbor stops by with tamales and news. Strange omens again. Lightning without rain, a flame in the sky, an owl screaming at noon. You laugh, but not too hard. You've seen enough to know the gods have a dark sense of humor. As night falls, the city transforms. Torches flicker on bridges. Drums and flutes echo softly over the water. The lake mirrors the stars so perfectly you can't tell which world is the real one. Children chase fireflies. Old men argue about harvests. And above it all, the temple looms, serene, unbothered, hungry. You lie down on your mat, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the city fading into background music. Tomorrow will be the same. Trade, worship, work, rest. It's the rhythm of empire, perfect, predictable, permanent. You close your eyes. Somewhere, far away, ships are already crossing the sea. But you don't know that yet. Tonight, the city still breathes. The gods are fed. And you, for now, are safe. It starts with light. Not sunlight, this is something else. A streak across the sky, bright enough to turn night into a kind of trembling dawn. No thunder follows. Just silence. And then the whisper begins, an omen. In Tenochtitlan, nothing is coincidence. Every bird's flight, every flicker of flame, every cough from a priest, all of it means something. So when a fire burns in the heavens for nights in a row, even the most practical farmer starts checking over his shoulder. The emperor, Moctezuma II, doesn't sleep much anymore. The messengers keep coming. A temple struck by lightning without rain, strange figures seen walking the lake at dusk, a woman crying in the streets, her voice echoing. My children, we must leave this place. You hear it too one night. Soft, distant, unplaceable, like wind through reeds. You tell yourself it's nothing. You keep telling yourself that until you see the temple burning. A few days later, a farmer from the coast arrives, shaking. He speaks of floating mountains on the sea, covered in shining metal, carrying men whose skin looks like bone. Everyone laughs. Until someone else sees it. And then someone else. By the third report, the laughter feels forced. The priests gather. Incense fills the temple. Feathers, obsidian, and worry decorate the floor. They read the omens, consult the codices, whisper to the gods. The answers come back fragmented, but clear enough. Something is coming, and it doesn't belong here. You go about your day anyway. What else can you do? The market still buzzes, the canals still carry canoes, the temple still demands its due. But the rhythm's off. People pray longer. Eyes flick to the horizon more often. And when thunder rolls, nobody assumes it's just weather. At night, Moctezuma walks the palace corridors, sleepless, pacing between statues of gods that suddenly seem less comforting. He dreams of stars falling and wakes to find his hands shaking. He sends gifts to the coast, gold, feathers, food, hoping to appease whatever power the omens are warning of. It's a polite gesture to the apocalypse. The rumors grow teeth. Someone says the strangers carry sticks that spit fire. Someone else says they ride beasts taller than a man. A merchant swears he saw one with shining skin that blinded him. Every story gets worse in the retelling, which means it's probably close to the truth. One morning, a small bird lands on the palace roof. A talking bird, they say, a trickster's gift. Moctezuma listens as it croaks in a language no one recognizes. Before anyone can react, a group of men kill it for being unlucky. The silence after feels heavier than the words ever could have been. You begin to notice the city changing. The markets feel thinner, quieter. The songs sound less confident. The priests chant longer, but their voices shake when they reach the end. Even the lake seems to hold its breath, as if it knows what's about to walk across it. And then one day the runners come. They burst into the capital, gasping, covered in salt and dust. Their words tumble out, frantic, tumbling over each other. They've landed. No one moves. No one speaks. The news spreads without sound, just faces turning, eyes widening. Moctezuma closes his eyes, exhales slowly, and says what everyone else is thinking but no one dares to admit. Perhaps they are gods. Spoiler, they aren't. But for now, the city believes. Belief is easier than panic. And denial is the last luxury of empires. You look toward the east that night. The stars are fading, swallowed by clouds. Somewhere beyond the horizon, ships are anchored, their sails catching the same wind that once carried your prayers. The lake glimmers under moonlight, calm and still, pretending it doesn't already know what's coming. Tomorrow, the strangers will arrive. And the sun will rise, but it won't feel the same. The morning air tastes different. Wet, metallic. The kind of air that comes before something ends, or begins, depending on your luck. From the coast, the strangers move inland. Armor catching the sun like shards of a broken mirror, flags whipping in the breeze. Behind them, horses snort, living creatures that make the ground tremble. To you, They look like beasts of myth, half man, half creature, gleaming with sweat and iron. To them, it's just another hot day. They march through villages that fall silent as they pass. Some people kneel. Some run. Some try to offer food, as if this might convince the visitors not to turn them into stories. They carry fire sticks, and when one explodes, smoke, thunder, a body, everyone understands what kind of story this will be. Word outruns them. By the time they reach the lake, Tenochtitlan already knows. You already know. The city waits, uneasy, magnificent, trying not to look afraid. The temples shimmer in the heat. The canals glisten like veins. Even the air feels ceremonial. Moctezuma dresses in gold and feathers. He doesn't trust his voice anymore, so he says little. He's convinced these beings might be divine, maybe emissaries of the gods returning. If they are, they deserve gifts. If they're not, well, maybe the gifts will buy a little more time. You stand among the crowd as the canoes glide across the lake. Hundreds of them, moving in eerie silence, carrying the strangers into the heart of the city. The reflection of their armor flashes on the water like molten light. It's beautiful and terrifying. When Cortez steps onto the causeway, the world seems to hold its breath. He smells of sweat, iron, and sea salt. His eyes flicker with calculation, not wonder. He's not seeing gods. He's seeing walls, streets, treasure. You can almost hear him counting. Moctezuma descends from his litter. He walks barefoot, jewels clinking softly. Two worlds meet in the middle of the bridge, one certain of its divinity, the other certain of its destiny. No one speaks for a heartbeat too long. Then Moctezuma bows, offers a necklace of gold. Cortez responds with glass beads and smiles. It's almost polite. Almost. You can feel the confusion in the air, centuries of prophecy colliding with men who just want silver. The priests whisper prayers. The Spaniards murmur to their crosses. Nobody realizes that this moment will never be undone. The visitors are escorted through the city. They stare at the causeways stretching across the lake, the towers, the markets, the gardens floating on water. Cortez keeps his face blank, but inside he's marveling and scheming. He's seen cities in Spain. He's never seen anything like this. The Aztec capital smells of flowers and blood. Perfume and incense on one breeze, sacrifice smoke on the next. You've lived with it your whole life, you barely notice. But the strangers do. They wrinkle their noses, mutter prayers, and clutch their weapons tighter. As night falls, torches light the plazas. The lake mirrors the fire, and the city glows like a constellation come to earth. The Spaniards dine with nobles, pretending to understand the language, pretending to be honored. Cortez smiles a lot. Too much. You can tell he's measuring distances, doors, exits, guards. He's already planning. Outside, the people whisper. Are these really gods? Why do they eat like men, sweat like men, bleed like men? And why does every gift seem to make them hungrier? The drums play into the night. The lake sighs against the causeways. Somewhere in the palace, Moctezuma can't sleep. He dreams of temples burning and wakes to find the stars gone behind clouds. Maybe it's just weather. Maybe it's not. The next morning, the strangers move freely through the streets. They touch the stones, the carvings, the gold. They look like pilgrims, or thieves who haven't decided what to steal first. The children follow them, laughing. The elders watch in silence. And you? You can't shake the feeling that you've already seen this story before, 1,000 times in 1,000 worlds, and it always ends the same way. The city doesn't change overnight. At first, it's just small things. A few extra guards near the palace. A few Spanish soldiers wandering where they shouldn't. And then a few Aztec messengers who don't come back. You can feel it. The air is different. The lake, usually alive with voices, has gone quiet. Even the birds seem to be listening. Cortez and his men are still guests. That's the official word. They eat Moctezuma's food, sleep under Moctezuma's roof, and smile through Moctezuma's ceremonies. But guest starts to sound a lot like hostage. And everyone knows it. The Spaniards move in small groups, exploring the temples and storerooms. They touch everything. Gold fascinates them, Not for its meaning, not for the gods it represents, just for how it catches the light. They chip it from walls, weigh it in their palms, whisper to each other like men falling in love. Moctezuma tries to keep peace. He hosts feasts, gives speeches about friendship, makes offerings to both gods and guests. But you can see it in his eyes, that quiet terror of a man realizing he's no longer in charge of his own house. One day, the Spaniards demand that the emperor move into their quarters. For his safety, they say. It's a joke, but no one's laughing. He goes, quietly, barefoot again. His guards stay outside. He stays inside. You don't need to be told what that means. The people whisper, our Tili, our speaker, our son, captured in his own palace. They pray louder now, just to hear their own voices echo. You wonder how long before those prayers turn into something else. Cortés acts polite. Always polite. He visits Moctezuma daily, bringing food and gifts, smiling as though nothing's wrong. But the emperor knows. You can tell by the way he avoids looking out the windows, as if the view itself has become an accusation. The city still functions, technically. Markets open. Boats glide across the canals. Children still play. But there's a tension under it all, a heartbeat too fast. Every noise sounds like the beginning of something. The Spaniards begin melting the gold idols. They say it's to protect them. They pour the molten metal into bars, heavy and shining, stacking them in quiet corners. It doesn't look like protection. It looks like greed made solid. One evening, you pass near the temple. The priests are arguing, their voices low but urgent. They say the gods are angry, that no offerings have been made since the strangers arrived. That the blood has stopped, and with it, balance. You don't say it out loud, but maybe they're right. The air feels thinner these days. The rain has forgotten the city. Meanwhile, Cortés receives word from the coast, reinforcements, but not friendly ones, Spaniards sent to arrest him. You almost laugh. Even invaders have bosses. He leaves to deal with them, leaving a few men behind in the city, to keep order. You know what that means. You just hope they don't decide that order looks like a massacre. Days pass. The tension stretches thin. At a festival honoring the war god, the people gather, singing, dancing, celebrating life, perhaps for the last time. The Spaniards stand watch, fidgeting, sweating under their armor. And then, something happens. A misunderstanding. Or an excuse. A spark. And the sound of steel. When it's over, the plaza is red. Hundreds dead. The music replaced by screams. The smell of incense now mixed with iron and ash. That night, the city changes for good. No one says the word guest anymore. No one says friend. You sit by the canal, watching the torches flicker on the water. The reflections look like tiny burning suns, each one going out one by one. The empire, the strangers, the gold, all of it feels smaller now. You think about Moctezuma in his silent chamber, staring at the wall, listening to the sounds of his own empire breaking apart. The gods are quiet. The city is not. And tomorrow, everything will catch fire. It begins with whispers, always whispers. No one calls it rebellion yet. They just say, enough. The massacre at the temple doesn't vanish into the smoke. The survivors carry it home, in their eyes, in the way they move through the streets. Mothers weep quietly, fathers sharpen obsidian blades. The city's heart, long patient and polite, starts to pulse again, louder this time. You feel it before it starts. The stillness that isn't peace. Even the lake seems restless, as if the water itself can't stay calm under so much grief. When Cortés returns from the coast, everything has changed. His men look smaller, fewer. Their armor no longer shines. It's dented, dark, and sticky with old blood. They walk through streets that once bowed to them but now glare. And the eyes of the people are not afraid anymore, just tired. The emperor, Moctezuma, tries again to speak to his people, to calm them. He's brought to a balcony, pale and trembling, flanked by Spanish guards who pretend not to look nervous. He raises his hand. The crowd goes silent, not out of respect, but out of disbelief. Then, someone throws a stone. It strikes him on the temple. He stumbles. The emperor who ruled an empire larger than imagination falls like any other man. That's when the shouting starts. The Spaniards panic. The gates close. The city, your city, becomes a trap. For days, the sky glows red. Smoke pours from the temples, screams echo through the canals. Every alley becomes a war. The sound of obsidian blades against metal fills the air like desperate rain. You see the Spaniards fire their cannons down narrow streets, killing everything that moves, friend, foe, bird, dog. The Aztecs answer with stones, spears, and fire. They know the city. They know every corner, every bridge, every place to strike and vanish. And for the first time, the strangers bleed more than they boast. Inside the palace, Cortez realizes what he's done. He has gold, too much gold. Too heavy to carry, too sacred to leave. So he melts it, breaks it into bars, and orders every man to take as much as he can bear. Some take more than they can bear. Greed is heavier than steel. Then, one moonless night, they make their move. They slip out in the rain, hundreds of them, dragging stolen treasure through sleeping streets. Except the city isn't sleeping. From the temples, drums thunder, deep, rolling, alive. Torches bloom along the causeways. Canoes slide through the black water like shadows with teeth. The lake itself seems to rise against them. The Spaniards stumble, trip, drown under the weight of their gold. Some drop it to swim. Some refuse and sink instead. The water swallows everything, bodies, treasure, shouts. Even the gods seem to be watching, silent but satisfied. You stand on the shore, hidden in the dark, watching them flail in the rain. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like balance. By morning, the causeway is littered with armor, bodies, and twisted metal. The survivors crawl out of the lake, shivering, broken, alive only by mistake. They will remember this night forever. They'll call it La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows. But for you, it's something else. The night the gods finally stopped pretending to care. The city smolders. The dead float on the water. The gold glints faintly beneath the surface, unreachable again, like sunlight under ice. You walk home through empty streets. Every step feels heavier. You know this isn't the end. They'll come back. Men like that always do. But for now, for one fragile dawn, the city belongs to its people again. And for the first time in months, the air smells like rain, real rain. No gunpowder, no smoke. Just rain. The lake heals faster than the city. For a few weeks, the surface looks calm again, hiding everything it swallowed. But underneath, the water is thick with ghosts. You can almost pretend it's over. Cortez and what's left of his army have limped away, half-starved, half-mad. The causeways are rebuilt. The markets reopen, smaller, quieter. People try to speak about the future in full sentences again. Except the priests say the gods are still hungry. And the horizon looks wrong, too empty. You keep glancing east, waiting for the sky to move. Far beyond the lake, Cortez does not sleep. He counts men, bullets, promises. He finds allies, tribes who hate the Mexica more than they fear the Spaniards. He gives them what every conqueror gives, a story about freedom, a promise that won't survive the first victory. Thousands join him. They march behind banners they don't understand, toward a city they plan to erase. Months pass. The air grows dry. Then one morning, smoke appears on the horizon again. Not from temples this time, but from fields, villages, forests. You can hear them before you see them, the clang of iron, the shouts, the hooves. They've come back, multiplied. And they brought the plague with them. The sickness moves faster than any army. People cough, blister, vanish into fever. It doesn't care about courage or bloodlines. By the time Cortez reaches the valley, the empire has already started dying from the inside. Still, Tenochtitlan stands. The city braces itself. Every causeway fortified, every canal blocked. You help carry stones, water, anything. The drums never stop now, day and night, to remind the living they're still here. Cortez circles the lake like a wolf, cutting off food, water, allies. He builds boats, Spanish ships, floating fortresses on Aztec water. It looks ridiculous at first until they start firing. Then it looks inevitable. The siege lasts for months. The sun feels sharper each day. The canals fill with bodies faster than you can clear them. You stop counting. You stop speaking. The city smells of smoke and rot, a perfume no god would accept. Moctezuma is long gone, killed by his own people or by the Spaniards. No one knows anymore, and it doesn't matter. A new emperor, Quang, leads now. You see him sometimes, thin but still fierce, giving orders with a voice that sounds like stone. He swears the city will never fall. You want to believe him. But belief doesn't feed anyone. The Spaniards attack from all sides. Their cannons flatten temples. Their allies swarm the bridges. You fight with what's left, spears, slings, desperation. Every victory lasts minutes. Every retreat costs streets. At night, the city glows red, reflected in the lake like a dying star. The drums fade, replaced by coughing. Children cry without tears. You dream of rain again, but the sky has forgotten how. Then one morning, silence. No drums, no shouts, no birds. Just the slow creak of the city collapsing under its own hunger. Cortés walks through the ruins like a man touring a dream he paid for. He finds Cuauhtémoc captured on a canoe, proud even in chains. The conqueror compliments his courage. The emperor replies, "I have done all that was my duty." And that's the last true thing anyone says. They call it victory. You call it what it is, the end of a world. The lake swallows the ashes. The temples are torn down, the stones reused for churches. The air smells of lime and dust. The gods go quiet again, but not gone, just buried under new names. You walk through what's left of the city. Somewhere beneath your feet, gold still glitters in the mud. But no one's looking anymore. They're too busy building the future on top of the bones. You walk south. Not in body, but in the story, because the story doesn't stop in ruins. It just changes scenery. Past the valleys and the salt flats, beyond deserts where even ghosts get lost, there are cities older than anyone remembers. No gold, no armies, no names carved into stone. Just silence and wind, and under that, foundations. They call one of them Cairo. Or what's left of it. A city built of stone and sand long before the first Egyptian pyramid caught the sun. 5,000 years ago, give or take, the math stops mattering after a while. You imagine waking up there. No kings, no swords, no conquest yet, just a civilization quietly deciding that order is better than chaos. The air is dry, the morning's cold. You rise before the light because light is something you work for. The city breathes differently than the ones that came after. No walls, they didn't need them. No armies, not yet invented. Just plazas, stairways, pyramids that hum softly with purpose. You can smell river dust, cooked maize, smoke from small fires curling upward like prayers without words. People here move slowly, measured. They build things not for glory, but for rhythm. Temples that align with stars, plazas that catch the wind just so. Someone figured out sound here, how air moves between stones, how music can speak when words don't exist yet. They play flutes made of bone, the oldest songs you'll never hear. If you're quiet enough, you can still feel the vibration of it under your feet. Civilization before ambition. Before war learned to count. You wonder why no one talks about this place. Maybe because it doesn't fit the story, the one that says real civilization came from somewhere else. From across an ocean, with ships and armor and diseases. But here it was already happening, silently, patiently, without permission. Carol had farmers, builders, priests, the whole pattern of humanity, minus the part that wants to conquer something. They built pyramids before they built weapons. They made cities without fortresses. And maybe that's why they were forgotten. Peace never makes for good legends. The wind shifts. Sand hisses against stone. You look around and realize the desert isn't empty. It's just shy. Every ridge hides another buried wall, another plaza lost to time. Civilizations don't disappear. They just wait for someone to listen again. Further east, the jungle takes over where the desert leaves off. Different climate, same silence. The Amazon, vast, green, pretending to be untouched, But it isn't. Beneath the roots and vines are roads, mounds, and shapes that don't belong to nature. Grids visible only from the sky. Archaeologists call them geoglyphs. Patterns carved by hands we forgot existed. They say millions once lived here, whole nations, swallowed by trees. Now the forest keeps their secret, like a mother pretending her children are asleep. You think about how strange it is, how people talk about discovery as if the land was waiting politely. How the word ancient always means somewhere else. But the oldest cities in the Americas don't need to compete with Egypt or Mesopotamia. They just sit here, breathing under sand and leaves, unimpressed. You crouch, touch the earth, swarm. Everything that's ever lived here is still here, in pieces too small to name. The jungle hums, insects, wind, civilization doesn't vanish. It just changes its camouflage. And if you listen long enough, you can almost hear the heartbeat of it. Stone, soil, memory. Steady, ancient, unconquered. History likes to pretend that endings are clean. One civilization collapses, another begins. The curtain falls, applause, fade to black. But the truth is quieter, messy. Civilizations don't end, they just whisper through the ruins. When the cities of Carol and the forgotten Amazon faded, they didn't vanish. They became the soil, literally. Their bones turned to dust, their stones to gravel, their rivers to borders. And somewhere in all that, memory survived, invisible, like the taste of smoke after the fire's gone out. You see it in the way the Inca built their cities high in the Andes. Every wall angled with impossible precision, every stone breathing with the mountain's pulse. They didn't invent that balance, they inherited it. It's the same instinct that once shaped Carol's pyramids and Amazonian grids. The earth is alive, build with it, not on it. Walk through Machu Picchu, or imagine it, since most will only see it through a screen. You can feel the echo there, between the terraces and the clouds. A civilization talking to the sky, answering back in stone. The stones fit so perfectly together you couldn't slip a sheet of paper between them. It's as if gravity itself is impressed. The Inca weren't just builders, they were listeners. Every wall, every step, every irrigation channel is tuned to sound, light, water. You can hear the past trickling through the aqueducts if you close your eyes. That's not engineering, that's memory, disguised as architecture. And then there are the Maya, far to the north, carving time itself into temples. Their cities rise from the jungle like forgotten thoughts. They mapped the stars, built calendars more accurate than the ones that came centuries later. Their pyramids aren't just monuments, they're machines for sunlight, shadow, and silence. When the equinox comes, the serpent of light still slides down the steps at Chichen Itza, because precision, unlike power, survives. You start to notice a pattern, not in the empires, but in the way the land itself remembers them. The rivers still follow their old channels. The mountains still hold the same terraces. Even when the cities fall, the shapes remain, like fingerprints pressed into stone. Colonization tried to erase that, new maps, new gods, new languages. But you can't overwrite geography. You can only rename it. Every step you take through the Americas, north, south, desert, jungle, you're walking on top of architecture. Whole cities under your feet, sleeping under centuries of rain and soil. Sometimes you can feel the rhythm, faint but steady. Not history. Pulse. And then there are the stories, oral traditions, songs, myths, passed down in the same breath that carries smoke and corn dust. They talk of floods, suns, ancestors of stone, gods who built the first cities and then vanished into mountains. Sound familiar? It should. Every old civilization, no matter where it lived, tells the same story. We built something. Then it was taken. But it's still here, if you listen. In the end, you realize something uncomfortable. Maybe civilization isn't about who built the biggest monument or wrote the oldest script. Maybe it's about endurance. The kind that doesn't need recognition to exist. The kind that survives fire, sword, and silence. The kind that plants corn where palaces used to stand and calls it enough. When you walk through an old ruin, you're not walking through death. You're walking through persistence. You're walking through the idea that people have always tried to make meaning out of chaos. And sometimes they actually succeeded. The echoes are still here. You can hear them in the stones, in the water, in the way light bends over broken temples. Civilization never left. It just learned to whisper. They called it the New World. Fresh, untouched, waiting to be discovered, like an empty house, keys left under the mat. That was the story they told themselves. And well, stories have power, especially the ones that make conquest sound like curiosity. But you and I know better. You've walked through the dust of Cairo, heard the ghosts whisper through the terraces of Machu Picchu. You've seen the serpent of light crawl down Maya steps. New is a strange word for a place that was already ancient. Imagine sailing across an ocean, wind-burned and hungry, and convincing yourself that every tree, every river, every face is seeing its first sunrise. That's the magic trick of empire. They don't just take land, they take memory. They rename the past, and suddenly, the world starts over with them as the main character. The first Europeans to step onto American soil didn't discover anything. They just walked into someone else's story halfway through and started narrating. And as usual, the narrator forgot to mention who was already speaking. The maps followed suit, all blank spaces and decorative sea monsters, as if the continents had been politely waiting for Europe to notice. Here be dragons, they wrote, not realizing the dragons had already built cities, carved calendars, irrigated deserts, and whispered their own names into the stones. The irony, of course, is that the so-called New World was older than half the kingdoms that claimed it. Cairo was already a ruin by the time the first Egyptian pyramids turned golden in the sun. Mesoamerican cities had been rising and falling for centuries before Rome even learned to build in stone. And the forests of the Amazon were not wild, they were gardens. Artificial, designed, deliberate. But empire hates complexity. It prefers simplicity, a straight line from barbarian to civilized, from empty land to progress. It's easier to plant flags on a clean slate than on a map full of inconvenient ancestors. You can still hear the echo of that narrative today. Every textbook that starts the story of the Americas in 1492. Every phrase like, before civilization reached the New World. It's the linguistic equivalent of sweeping ruins under a rug and calling it housekeeping. Let's be honest, it's not just bad history. It's arrogance. The kind that survives centuries because it's comfortable. The kind that tells you pyramids in Egypt mean genius, but pyramids in Mexico mean mystery. Because if you admit the Americas were already civilized, deeply, complexly, beautifully so, then you have to admit that civilization isn't a European export. It's a human instinct. Something that blooms anywhere people decide to stay long enough to care about what happens after they're gone. The myth of the New World isn't just about geography, it's about ownership. About whose timeline matters. About who gets to say, we were first. But when you strip away the flags, the dates, the propaganda, you're left with something embarrassingly simple. People building, planting, and praying in every corner of the planet at the same time. No one was first. Everyone was trying. Civilization didn't start in one place and spread like an infection. It sparked over and over again, wherever the soil was kind enough and the sky forgiving enough. And in the Americas, it burned brightly, quietly, for millennia before anyone came calling it new. So when you hear that word again, New World, think of it as a punchline. A joke told by history, still echoing centuries later. Because what's newer? The empire that lasted a few hundred years? Or the cities that lay beneath it, still older than legend, still breathing under the dirt? In the end, there was nothing new about this world. Only new people pretending they'd invented it. And now, here we are, thousands of years later, sitting in the dark, eyes half closed, listening to the ghosts of civilizations you were never supposed to remember. It's strange, isn't it? How history keeps looping back, like a song that refuses to end. You live in a world that worships progress. We build taller buildings, faster machines, smaller screens. We like to believe we've come a long way from mud, brick, and stone. But sometimes, when you look closely, it's hard to tell if we've advanced or just rearranged the ruins. Carol's pyramids crumble quietly beneath the Peruvian sun. Maya temples drown in jungle roots. The old roads of the Andes still cut their way across mountains, and sometimes, modern highways follow the same lines without even realizing it. We're still tracing their footsteps, pretending we're the first ones to get here. If you strip away the noise, the electricity, the glass, the Wi-Fi, what's left isn't so different from before. We still build. We still dream. We still fear the sky will fall, and the water will rise, and everything we've made will turn back into dust. Maybe civilization isn't a timeline at all. Maybe it's a rhythm. Something that beats on, whether we're listening or not. There's a cruel kind of poetry in how easily we forget. It's efficient, almost. We bury our ruins, rename our gods, rewrite our beginnings. And then, one day, someone digs up a stone, or a bone, and suddenly everything we thought we knew collapses again. And the cycle starts over. You wonder what will be left of us. A few fragments of concrete, maybe. Some melted glass. A rusted satellite, still orbiting a planet that forgot why it ever reached for the stars. Maybe one day someone, or something, will dig through our ashes and whisper, "They must have been advanced." And then laugh softly, because we won't be there to correct them. But here's the comforting part, the quiet secret hidden in all of this. Every time a civilization disappears, it doesn't die. It becomes part of the next one. Its stones get reused. Its gods get renamed. Its stories get retold, usually with slightly better grammar. We are the sum of all their memories, whether we like it or not. So when you think about the Americas, not as a new world, not as someone's discovery, but as an ancient continent humming with forgotten time, remember that it never stopped being old. We just stopped paying attention. The wind still moves through the plazas of Carol the same way it did 5,000 years ago. The stars still hang above the Andes in the same impossible patterns. And deep in the Amazon, roots still grow through stone walls no one remembers building. Civilization doesn't vanish. It just changes its disguise. You can hear it if you're quiet enough. That low hum beneath the noise of your city. That flicker of déjà vu when you see a modern skyline and think of pyramids. That feeling that maybe we've been here before, building, collapsing, rebuilding. Again and again. So the Americas were never empty. They were never new. They were old, ancient, and impossibly alive. And the more we dig, the older they get. Maybe one day, we'll stop being surprised. Until then, remember this. Every skyscraper has a pyramid beneath it. Every highway follows an old road. And every civilization, including ours, is just another chapter in a story the Earth has been writing for far longer than we've been reading it. You can close your eyes now. The ruins will still be there when you wake up.